Hello brothers and sisters. Today we're going to talk about the Universal Peace Federation philosophy of peace. We know in our world everybody really wants peace and security and happiness, all of these things, but we live in a world which is very much divided, and it isn't a peaceful world. There are many great conflicts at the moment in Russia, in Ukraine, in the Sudan, in Gaza, in Myanmar, and different places of the world. So you could ask everybody everywhere, do you want to live in a world of peace? And they would all say, yes, of course we do. So the big question is, why haven't we got a world of peace, and why haven't we had a world of peace in history? Because people's historical desire would have been the same. So why is it we can't achieve that? And it's because we don't really understand the principles of peace. So that's what we're going to look at today. What are the principles that can lead us to a peaceful world that we all want and all desire? So there are basic principles that we're going to look at in the philosophy of peace. One is the universal principle number one is that God is our common parent. That's the first one. Universal principle number two is that humankind are essentially spiritual in nature as well as having a physical existence. And universal principle number three is that peace is rooted in the practice of living for the sake of others. And universal principle number four is that true and lasting peace has its base in the family, which is the school of love. And then universal principles 5 and 6, peace requires that we work to overcome the barriers of race, religion, nationality and culture in order to unite humankind, because there are all sorts of barriers that have separated us and caused war and distrust and enmity. So we have to deal with all of these things. So that's what we're going to do today. So the first universal principle, there is an ultimate reality, God, who is our common parent, the origin of true love and the foundation of lasting peace. This is an essential principle and the point from which everything starts. So in history, people have been divided. Cultures were separated from one another and didn't really know much about what was going on the other side of the world, but religions have developed, and they've developed in isolation and in separation from one another because of geographical distances, really. And so there are many different religions, and they have a different name for God, for the great source of the universe. So we've got a few of those names up here on the screen. The Great Spirit, if you're an American Indian, a North American Indian, and in Hinduism you have Brahman, the ultimate highest being, and in Islam you have Allah. In Christianity we talk about God in the Western world. In Sikhism people talk about Nam. Ahura Mazda is the name for God in Zoroastrianism. Jehovah, Yahweh, these are terms from the Old Testament era, the Jewish faith. Kami is a Japanese word for God. Tao is a Chinese name for the great ultimate, or the we would say God in the West. So many different names for God, but actually we're not talking about separate gods here. We're talking about one God. There's only one source for the universe, as we shall see as we go on. But different names, but the same understanding. There is an ultimate being. There is a source of our existence, and we have to understand this source to understand our own reality. So our conclusion, which we'll see as we go along, is that God is the parent of humankind. All humankind, that is. So whatever religion you have, the spiritual principles that govern the universe are the same. So we have maybe a different apprehension of those principles, but we can find truth in all the religions of the world. Expressed in a different way, but we can see that the moral principles of how we should live and how we should act are actually very similar. Compassion, love, care, concern for others, these are found in all the religious teachings of the world. There's not a single religion that teaches you to be selfish and just live for yourself and exploit others. There is nothing like that. They all have this concept of living for the greater good and expressing love, compassion, mercy and kindness and all of these virtuous things. So it shows us that religions and humanity do come from this one source, the parent of humankind that we call God or Allah or whatever you want to call. And there are many scriptural quotations we can look at which verify this. In Hinduism, from the Bhagavad Gita, I am the father and mother of the world. This is the parental heart here. And in Christianity, from the book of Romans, when we cry Abba, Father, it is the Spirit himself bearing witness that we are children of God. And if children, then his heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ. And here's another quotation from Shintoism, which again expresses this parental nature of God, of the universe. All you under heaven regard heaven as your father, earth as your mother, and all things as your brothers and sisters. Again, we can see father, mother is expressed here, as in that first quote, father and mother of the world. And this one from Sikhism, you are father, mother, friend, brother, with you as comforter in all places, what fear do I have? And then again in Judaism, from the Bible, Deuteronomy, you are the children of the Lord your God. So we can see this expression of God's parental nature in all the scriptures. Not by accident, but because they do have common spiritual principles. And as I've said already, the universe is one universe and it works on one set of principles, whatever your religions are. So at the centre of the UPF vision is the recognition that human beings have been created by God in accordance with certain basic principles and laws. The universe is not a random thing. It does operate according to principles and laws. There are physical laws, there are spiritual laws, and we have to know what those laws and principles are. And unless human beings are rightly related to God and come to reflect the harmony and goodness that is within God, we will not be able to achieve peace. In other words, we can't achieve peace without understanding life, understanding God, God's heart, God's motivation and God's purpose, in order to understand our own purpose, as we'll see as we go along. So the relationship between God and human beings is very important for us. God is the cause of the universe, the original creator, and human beings are part of the result or the effect. In other words, we didn't create the universe, we didn't create our own life, we don't exist because we decided to, but we're produced by the universe, or people might say produced by nature, or as religious people will say we're produced by God. God created us. So we need to know about God in order to understand our own purpose and how to fulfill that purpose. So God is in the position where he initiated everything. That means a subjective position, and we're in the position where we have to learn from God and understand the pre-existent principles of the universe that do exist. And so scripture teaches us that God is the ultimate parent, as we've looked at the quotes already, and human beings are the children of God, and we resemble God. This is an important thing, and as it says in the Bible, we are in the image and likeness of God. So if you think about that, that's a very, very close connection. To be in the image of something is to be an exact duplicate, really. So in the Bible it teaches us that God is the origin of true love. It says God is love, in fact. And to know God you have to love. This is what it tells us. And God exists not for himself. God exists for the sake of others. God lives for the sake of others. In the Bible it does tell us that we should love God with all our heart, mind and soul. But if God were commanding us to love him, and he didn't love in his way, if God didn't reciprocate that love, then it would be a tyranny, really, if God was just saying, well, you must worship me, you must love me. But actually God already, before humans existed, was practicing this principle of living for the sake of others. So God invested totally to create humankind, and he did this for the sake of love. There is nothing more precious than love for human beings. It's the thing we aspire to, the highest thing we can aspire to. And it's also true for God. God already has everything. God has all knowledge, all power, all material things have their origin in God. But God alone cannot find true love. So God created for true love. And true love always seeks a partner. You can't find true love by yourself. So God created for the purpose of love. So as human beings, the highest beings that exist in the universe, the physical universe, we're created for the purpose of love. And human beings are God's eternal partner of love. God is an eternal being, so God wants his partners in love to be eternal. So human beings live forever, and this is again something all religions have taught, that we don't just exist temporarily in the physical world, but we have an existence that goes beyond this physical reality. So important then, God is the origin of true love. True love always seeks a partner, and human beings are God's eternal partner of love. So as human beings we can feel and empathize with God's feelings. God is a God of compassion, a justice God, a righteous God, a truthful God, and above all, God is a God of true love. And these qualities resonate in the human heart. These are things that we also seek. And above all, we seek true love. This is the most precious thing for us, because it is the most precious thing for God, the parent, the heavenly parent. So we seek true love as well as the other points I've mentioned. So God is good, but our world is full of conflict because we're ignorant of God. This is the main problem. People don't really know much about God, and we don't really resemble him. We have this nature which was caused by the fall, which religions acknowledge, this deviation from God, and people tend to act in a selfish way. So our nature doesn't correspond to the nature of God or the nature of the universe, where everything exists for the sake of the whole purpose. So religion has this central role in overcoming our ignorance and transforming us from selfishness to living for God and others. So all religions have the same purpose, really, although, as I've said, they may express in a different way. So that's the first principle. The second principle, universal principle, is that human beings in the cosmos we inhabit have both physical and spiritual dimensions. And again, this is something religions have always taught throughout history for tens of thousands of years, or maybe even longer than that. Human beings have a spiritual dimension. We're not just animals. We're not just advanced animals, as people sometimes teach these days. We're actually unique spiritual beings that exist forever. and religions developed because of this reality. And before religions there was shamanistic practices where people sought to contact the spirit world through trance or dance or various other means. So very important then, we have both a physical reality and a spiritual reality. And the spiritual reality is the eternal part of us. Humans are essentially spiritual in nature. This is our primary core. The core of our being is spiritual. But also we have a physical body, and we have a physical body for a reason, not without reason. So very important to understand. The physical body needs certain things. We need food, we need shelter, we need wealth or material things, we need to be comfortable. And if we have those things, we can have physical well-being. But if we have physical well-being, but we can't satisfy our inner desire for truth, for beauty, for goodness, for true love, we cannot have inner satisfaction. So both of these things have to exist in harmony. It's not enough just to have material things, and we can see this very clearly. Sometimes people are very, very wealthy, but they can't find this inner peace and happiness that they really need. They may even commit suicide because of this inner lack. So happiness is when those two things are both fulfilled, our spiritual needs and our physical needs. If we don't have the spiritual needs fulfilled, we can't really be happy. It doesn't work. As we see in the world, those countries that advocated atheism and materialism, they became very unhappy places, actually, full of oppression and tyranny, and they just didn't work. So we have to find this inner balance, and to do this we have to know about the spiritual side of our life. So everybody wants to become a true person, relating properly to God, with our mind and body harmonized and in peace within. And human life is designed for that purpose. We start out not as a mature being, but actually as a sort of, what can we say, a self-centered being. A baby is self-centered. They exist, and if they're hungry and it's the middle of the night and mum is completely exhausted, the baby doesn't mind. They scream anyway till they get what they want. So that's where we start, as a baby, as an immature being that's centered on ourselves, which is perfectly natural. But if we become a mature being at 21 years old and we're still screaming for our mum at night to come and feed us, that wouldn't be considered normal. It would be very abnormal, actually. So we're supposed to develop internally, and our heart, our ability to know others' needs has to grow. So first of all, we receive love from our parents, our friends, our brothers and sisters, uncles, aunts, and so on. So we receive love, and then we receive truth also from our parents. Our parents guide us as to what is right, what is correct, and they teach us how to be less selfish, how to share. If we're grabbing all the food at the table, your parents will say, "Don't do that, Johnny. Give some to your brother. Help your brother and sister." This is how we learn. Our parents guide us into the correct way to live. So step by step we're growing, not just physically, which is autonomous, an automatic process. We don't have to think about how tall to grow or what colour our hair should be. It all happens automatically. So physical growth is an automatic process. We breathe, we eat, we drink, and we grow automatically, autonomously. But our inner growth requires our effort. So there's a relationship between the spirit and the body, the two aspects of ourself. So the body is like the soil in which our inner self, the seed, if you like, the seed, our spiritual seed, can grow and develop. So that requires us to act freely. We have absolute freedom, but we have to use that freedom wisely and within the truth, and we have to follow our conscience. And if we do that, our inner self will grow. So as we practice the teachings of our religion, to love, to care, to be compassionate, to help others, to look after people, our own inner self, our spiritual body will grow and develop and take proper form. So this is the key point to remember. And then we become a person who can resonate with the universe or resonate with God much, much more fully. And we become a mature human being with a heart of love and a true character. And our mind and body in harmony, and then we resemble God. As I said already, the Bible tells us we're in the image and likeness of God. So we have to grow into that by our own free will. And that's the important point to understand. Our inner state is actually up to us. God is a totally free being, so human beings also have to use their freedom wisely and practice the truth they know to be true, or follow the principles of life or the principles of the universe. And we grow spiritually. Very, very important. But that's our part. God doesn't do it for us. So, when we look at life, there are 3 stages to life. The stage of the womb, the stage of being on earth, then the stage of being in the spirit world. So in the womb, we're actually preparing not to stay in the womb forever, but actually to come out into the physical world. So in the womb, our body develops, not for life in the womb. Our nose develops, our lungs develop, our stomach develops, all the organs of the body develop. Not for life in the womb, but actually for life on earth. So the womb is a preparation for life in the physical dimension. And then we come into the earth, and actually the earth is not the final destination for human beings either. It's preparation for the next stage of life, or the perfect stage of life. So on earth we have our physical body, physical self, and we have our spirit self, as we've talked about already. And the whole purpose is that that spirit self becomes mature. So on earth we're preparing and growing and developing, so when we go into the next dimension, or the spirit world, which is our final destination, the eternal one, we will be properly matured. We'll be able to live in the spirit world with ease, with happiness, with harmony, and with peace in that dimension. So life is this stage by stage process. In the womb, preparing for the earth; on the earth, preparing for our final destination, the spirit world. So if people are not aware of this, if people think, well, the earth is all there is and my physical life is all there is, life becomes rather a desperate battle to survive. Whereas if we know there is another dimension to which we're going inevitably, whether we want to or not, and if we know about that world being a world of beauty and goodness, as all the religions teach, a place that's desirable to go, if we know about this and understand the laws of that world and how to get there properly by practicing truth on earth, then we will have fulfilled our purpose in being on the earth in the first place. So physical life is important and shouldn't be negated. Sometimes people had this concept that physical life is evil and you should just punish the body and subject it to all sorts of deprivations. But physical life is very, very important, because it's the physical body is the vehicle through which our spirit grows. So we should look after the physical body, and it's a precious time when we can learn how to live for the greater purpose, and we can learn how to practice love. Very, very important. So the body is important as well. We should keep it healthy, fit. We shouldn't abuse the body. We should look after it and think of it as the temple of our spirit. it's our generating plant, really. We generate our spiritual life through the body or with the body. Energy comes from the physical life to the spirit. So universal principle number 3, peace is rooted in the principle and practice of living for the sake of others. This is very, very important to understand. And there are lots of scriptural quotations which show the truth of this in all the different religions. There's one from Judaism. Hillel said, "Be of the disciples of Aaron, one that loves peace, that loves mankind, and brings them nigh to the law," or closer to God, we could say. So don't just live for yourself, in other words. Love mankind and bring them to God. Then from Buddhism, when I work in this way for the sake of others, I shall not let conceit or the feeling that I am wonderful arise. It's just like feeding myself. I hope for nothing in return. And then from Islam, not one of you is a believer until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And from Christianity, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And from the Bhagavad Gita from Hinduism, when a person responds to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were his own, he has attained the highest state of spiritual union. So we can see from all these quotes from different religions, from different eras, different cultures, the same principle. Live for the greater good. Live for the sake of others. Don't just try to live for yourself, because if you do, you can't possibly prosper. But if we live according to the laws of God or the laws of the universe, we can be in peace and we can be in harmony and we can be happy. And God's ideal is live for the sake of others. That's what God does. God isn't just sitting on a throne waiting to be worshipped, but God actually lives maintaining the universe, pouring out energy and love for the whole universe every single moment. And everything exists in a pair system. We can look in the atom and we can see electrons and protons. They live for each other. They both are needed to enable the atom to function. We look at the solar system. There are the sun and the planets. They are both needed in order for the whole to exist, for the whole solar system to exist. In human society there are men and women. There are male and female in the animal world. There's stamen and pistil in the plant world. Everything exists in this pair system, and everything exists for the greater good and for the sake of their partners. So very important to understand, nobody lives in isolation or just for themselves. And if you try to do that, it doesn't work. So as we've said already, God lives for the sake of his creation. God exists pouring out energy and love and care and concern every single second of every single moment in eternity. God invested for the sake of love. And love is the most precious thing, and for God it's more precious than all the whole universe. So as human beings, if we try to exert ourselves and live for the greater good, live for our family, live for our society, live for something more than ourselves, we can live in harmony and we can have good relationships to others, and therefore we can have good relationships to the source of our being, which is God. If we cultivate a nature within ourselves that resembles the nature of God, then we can be at peace with one another, and we can be at peace with God or at peace with the universe. And we can live together in a harmonious society. So That's what the world needs: true parents, true teachers, and true leaders. People that exist for the greater good. So parents generally do. They exist for the sake of their children. Teachers should exist for the sake of their students, and leaders should exist for the sake of their people. They should serve everybody and give their energy, their life for the greater good. If they did that, the world would be a wonderful place, and leaders would be respected, politicians would be respected, which at the moment they aren't. People don't really think much of politicians because oftentimes they're corrupt. They may take bribes. They may be egoistic, thinking I'm such a wonderful person, people have to listen to me and I have all the knowledge and wisdom, and it's all very confused because all of these people are self-centered, so the whole thing doesn't really work very well. So God's ideal is to live for the sake of others. The whole universe is an interconnected, interdependent body where there are many living entities, and they all have a part to play in the maintenance of the whole. So God actually does live for the sake of others. God exists entirely for the sake of true love and for uh, humanity. So God lives for us entirely and provides everything for us. This is God's ideal, and we are meant to emulate that and live for the greater good with love and with care and with consideration. So, as individuals, we don't exist in isolation, but we exist in relationships with the natural world. We exist in relationships within our family and within our society. So, we can contribute our uniqueness, our value, our individuality, our talents to the whole purpose. And as we do that, we will be happy and we will be fulfilled. And as we're part of the whole universe, part of the whole of the world or the whole of creation, if we all contribute to the common good, our own purpose is going to be fulfilled automatically and our own needs. So we will feel secure, peaceful, and we will live in harmony. So this is the real path to peace, is to have this concept of the greater good and to use our abilities, our talents for our family. That's the first step. I can give love, service, help to my family. My family can become a harmonious family if all the members of the family are working for the good of the family, cooperatively, in harmony and in love. We can create a good, happy, loving, valuable family, somewhere where we want to be. And if we have good families in society, we can create good communities, because a community is, in essence, a collection of families. And the family and then the community will have all sorts of talents, abilities collectively that they can use for the greater good and the good of the community. And then we go on to the level of the nation. So all the communities within a nation, if they have the concept of the good of the nation over their own good, and they think, how can we contribute to the well-being of the nation, and the nation becomes a prosperous, happy nation in which we live as individuals and families and communities, and our needs and our hopes are all guaranteed because of this principle, the principle of the universe, living for the sake of others. And then we live in the world. Nations in the world tend to be selfish at the moment, putting self-interest first, our needs, our hopes, our aspirations, and if the other nations are in a bad way, that's their problem. But in this way, the true and original way, the path of peace, each nation would use their individual unique talents for the sake of the world. Nations would live for other nations. And if you had a world like that, it would automatically be a world of peace and a world of love, without fear, without aggression, without violence. So this is the ideal. And then we come to universal principle number 4. True and lasting peace has its base in the family, which is the school of love. Here's some nice pictures of various families. And in the family, we have to understand this is the only place where we can learn about all the different aspects of love. There's parental love in the family, there's conjugal love in the family, the love between men and women, and then there's the children's love, there's brothers and sisters' loves. And when all these loves are there within the family, we can learn about love through our environment in the family. Orderly, harmonious, joyful love. And marriage is very, very important, therefore. And without marriage and without a strong commitment to fidelity, loyalty, and at least a lifelong commitment in marriage, then there can only be difficult situations. So marriage is very, very important, and it should be regarded as a sacred institution, not something casual that we can jump in and out of, because children need their parents for how long? Actually, it's a lifelong commitment to have children and raise them up properly. It takes a long time. Unlike the birds, which raise their young in a year, they don't need that everlasting, lifelong commitment. But as human beings, we do. And your children are always your children. You never stop loving them. You never stop caring for them. Even when they're old, you still love them in the same way as when they were little babies. As we've said, sacred institution and a sacred commitment. Family, the school of love, and the spouse's love should be, as we've already said, really, is a commitment, a lifelong commitment where there should be fidelity and this unchanging love. Love, true love, never changes. So it is always a wonderful thing if you see an old couple who are still in love walking hand in hand along the road. That's always very inspiring. But if you see a couple that are arguing and fighting and attacking one another, it's always very saddening, really. So in the family is where we learn true love. Our first teachers are our parents. The family is the school of love, nurturing our heart and character, and the primary training ground for relationships. It's also the school of ethics, where we learn how to behave properly, how to act properly, how to live with manners, with politeness, with care for the environment, with care for others. These are the things our parents will teach us. And also we become good citizens based on the training we have in our family. So empathy begins with mother and infant, and antisocial problems come from family problems. So we have a tremendous lot of family breakdown today, tremendous amounts of divorce in advanced countries, oftentimes 40% divorce, or even higher than that, maybe up to 60%. And all of this brings pain and problems which then are reflected in the greater society. So true families, ideal families of true love, where everyone practices the principle of living for the sake of others, is the foundation for peace. And finally then, universal principles 5 and 6. This tells us that peace requires that we work to overcome the barriers of race, religion, nationality, and culture that have historically divided humanity. So we know there's been racism in history. People thought their race was the best race and all the others should be perhaps exterminated, as in the case of Nazi Germany, or at least they're much inferior. These particular people in Africa are inferior to the rest of us, therefore we can enslave them with impunity. Completely wrong. All human beings come from the one God and have the same needs, same aspirations, and the same destiny. Religions have also divided us. We don't usually think this, but actually people have insisted that our religion is better than yours, we're higher than you are, and they fought and argued over religion and even killed one another over religion. There have been so many religious wars in history which have not really been what God wanted. They have divided people and caused bitterness and hatred and resentment. So religions, we have our own religion, that's perfectly fine, but we have to respect and honour the good and the truth that we do find in all the world religions. Both interreligious and international cooperation are necessary for peace to be achieved. Very, very important. So religion is very, very important. It's not just something to give us comfort and hope, but it's the source of humanity's deepest values and highest ideals. And it is a powerful instrument for personal transformation. People can be changed through the teachings of religion, through coming to understand there is a God and there are laws and principles to which I must follow in my life in order to become a good, honourable human being. So religious disunity shapes individuals and society negatively, and it blocks a way to peace. Very, very important to understand. So what is the cause of conflict? Actually, this is all rooted in the spiritual dimension of life. And the way to peace, we have to sort out the root, which is spiritual reality. Why are human beings the way they are? So we've understood already that the principle of the universe, or the basic principle of the created world, is to live for the greater good, to live for the sake of others. And I don't exist just for my benefit, but I exist to give my unique abilities and talents for the sake of the whole. And peace is sustained and developed through having this consciousness of the greater good, the value of the whole, and for practicing the principle of living for the greater good, or living for the sake of others. If we all have this concept and consciousness, the world can change and become a good world. So conflict starts when individuals try to use everything around them for their own purpose, or in other words, they don't contribute to the whole, but they primarily think of their own needs, what I want, what I desire, what I hope for, and everything around me exists so I can fulfill my purposes. And this actually violates the laws of the universe. That's why it never brings anything but division, distrust, and fear. So we have to get away from this concept that exists in the world, where I must fulfill my needs first. And it is the law of the jungle. We live in this jungle, so we have to use our abilities to get what we want. We're just great advanced animals. This is another concept people have. So if I behave like an animal, it's perfectly fine. And this concept that others exist for my benefit is very, very strong in the world. Businesses are run often on the principle of just purely profit, not for people's good. So if people have to be exploited and used, that's perfectly fine, as long as I make lots of money out of it. This is wrong. This is against the laws of the universe. So this is a self-centered perspective on life, not God-centered. So this is the problem. It's an inner problem. It's a problem which diminishes the value of the whole. So our first problem as human beings is we're separated from our root. God is our root. God is the source of our being. And we ended up like this maybe tens of thousands or even millions of years ago. There's this point of separation which the religions all talk about, where we fell away from God or we lost our original nature. So we have, first of all, individual level conflict between the body, which is a physical entity. It's an instinctive being, and it lives for itself. The body knows its desires and always tries to fulfill them. But on the other hand, we have a mind which is aware of the bigger picture, the greater good. It's aware of the universe, it's aware of God, it's the spiritual part of us, and that it knows that others have needs. So there's conflict here as well. Struggle between the mind and body. People tend to follow the bodily instincts and they tend to become self-centered human beings, unfortunately. But we should listen to our mind and cultivate our spirituality so we can live in harmony and peace together. Also, we can talk about family level conflict. The Bible talks about the fall of man, Adam and Eve, both falling and misusing one another. So there's the struggle between man and woman. Men and women are supposed to exist in complete harmony because God himself has both masculine and feminine qualities, characteristics in perfect harmony. So human beings are meant to reflect that. So this struggle and conflict between men and women has been a historical problem, and we have to solve that as well. And this is where the man lives entirely for the woman lives entirely for the man. They live for each other, and collectively they live for the sake of their children, and the children live for the sake of the parents. So family level conflict, and then we've got the story of Cain and Abel in the Bible, and this conflict that's risen to a world level where we've had blocks of nations. In the Cold War, we remember blocks of nations who were antagonistic towards one another and sought to impose their ideologies on the other party by force if necessary. Brother and brother conflict. So we see all these levels of conflict which start within the self or within the mind of human beings. They don't really start outside. So we know religion teaches this, the golden rule, how to live correctly. And it's very interesting when you study the world scriptures, you can see all of these quotes that come from different religions which have the same message. From Confucianism, Si Kung asked, is there one word that can serve as a principle of conduct for life? Confucius replied, it is the word shu, reciprocity. Do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. And from Jainism, a man should wander about treating all creatures as he himself would be treated. From Buddhism, comparing oneself to others in such terms, just as I am, so are they, just as they are, so am I. He should neither kill nor cause others to kill. And then we see in Islam something very similar, the golden rule. Not one of you is a believer until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And again, the same message in Christianity, Matthew chapter 7. Whatever you wish that men would do to you, do so to them. And then a quote from Judaism. Hillel said to him, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That is the whole Torah. All the rest of it is commentary. Go and learn. Then we have a great quote from Martin Luther King Jr., a civil rights leader in America. We never get rid of an enemy by meeting hate with hate. We get rid of an enemy by getting rid of enmity. This concept that someone's your enemy. We have to do away with that and realize that all human beings, in essence, are brothers and sisters. A quote from Mahatma Gandhi, by a long course of prayerful discipline, I have ceased for over 40 years to hate anybody, but I can and do hate evil wherever it exists. I hate the system of government that the British people have set up in India. I hate from the bottom of my heart the hideous system of untouchability. We can only win over the opponent by love, never by hate. Hate is the subtlest form of violence. If I am a follower of Ahimsa, I must love my enemy. And further from Mahatma Gandhi, Having flung aside the sword, there is nothing except the cup of love, which I can offer to those who oppose me. It is by offering that cup that I expect to draw them close to me. Love is the strongest force the world possesses, and yet it is the humblest imaginable. So we have to remember that and keep that in mind, that love is the strongest force, and it can change the world. It has the power to change if we really practice this selfless love that Gandhi was talking about here. Interreligious and international cooperation are essential for world peace. So here we have some pictures from the UPF work in Israel, where we brought together Jews, Christians, and Muslims who could embrace one another and call one another brothers, and have this work for peace in the Middle East, or pray for peace in the Middle East was the slogan, as we see in one of the pictures there. So this is very, very important too, and something we have to stress and work on in the future. So that is the end of this presentation. Thank you very much for listening. God bless you all.